What happens to all those institutional investors that need to be invested in public companies? Once this is taken private and all they really have essentially is the right to an appraisal claim, would they be able to stay in that?
Look, I'm not going to say that this is for everybody. And you're right. There are institutions that won't do this. But that doesn't mean it's not a good thing to do. In fact, it almost makes it easier for the company to make a deal and a settlement when there aren't that many appraisals in there. So, in other words, this is not for everyone, and that almost makes it more exciting.
In what sense, Carl?
Well, I mean, if you have less appraisal rights out there, very often the company wants to get rid of them and wants to settle them, and the banks want them out of the way. So it's happened very often in the past that they will just go along and settle them. Or, I mean, a lot of good things can happen. I can't tell you how many times in the past we went and did what I call these no-brainers, and people would laugh and say to me, hey, how could you ever make money on them? I mean, again, I give you my first thing in 1968 where I made 10 times my capital, where they said, well, the market's booming or something like that. I can't remember exactly way back, but, market's booming. For you to make money on this, the market has to go down precipitously. I said, well, what the hell? I got no risk. I might as well do it. And I kept doing it and doing it. And the market fell apart. And there are arcade areas of these no-brainers where you can do it with puts and calls and straddles and CDSs. But I am saying that these do exist. And so I can't tell you why you'll make money on this, and there's a good chance you won't. I mean, when you take no risk, I mean, well, you got an infinite risk-reward ratio. I mean, it doesn't mean you're always going to make money. In fact, a lot of times you don't, but a lot of times you make a lot more than you can believe you would have.
Well, you just mentioned a key word, and that was settle. What do you think the likelihood or probability is that Michael Dell comes back and settle isn't necessarily the word, but adjust their own offer?
Hey, look, I can't speak for what Michael Dell will do or what his motivations are here. I do think he's getting a great bargain. People do what's in their own self-interest, and that's what he's doing here. I mean, Michael Dell's a smart guy. I don't think he's run the company that well over the last 3-4 years. And in fact, I would bring up that a new CEO in this company, I think, would be a major plus. But that's not to mean that he's not a smart guy. And if he's paying for it, I mean, that's where I disagree with ISS, too. This CEO is so nice, he's catching a falling knife. Well, he's not going in and catching a falling knife. That's not what he does. That's not what people do, and you can't blame him for that. I mean, you wouldn't expect him to go catch a falling knife. I mean, he's a smart guy. Why should he go catch a falling knife? So it's sort of ridiculous, in my opinion, to say, well, isn't Dell being a great guy here? Look at him. He's going in and catching a falling knife. Well, that's not what Michael Dell does. I mean, he knows the company better than anyone, and he's paying $13.65 for it. So
in other words, he must have some interest in other words, it can't really be in your sense or in your words a falling knife if he so badly wants to have it.
I don't think anybody would accuse Michael Dell of doing this for charity and helping the shareholders.
If you were in charge today, Carl, who would you put in, do you think? Any ideas on a new CEO who might be better?
I'll speak to that. I mean, there's 3 or 4 guys that are really good for this, but nobody is going to accept a job if they have another good job, or even if they don't, walking into a beehive or a proxy fight. Over the years, we've brought in great people in Motorola, in Chesapeake today, in Icahn, or Biogen. Biogen went from, after we changed the CEO there, he retired, he went from 22 to 240 today. Unfortunately, I sold it around 120, but the point is, you take a look at that company, you take a look at Icahn, you take a look at Philips Services, that Motorola is a great example. We brought in Sanjay Rao, and look how he turned that thing around, where he went for the Android. So, but none of these guys would have taken the job if they were walking into a proxy fight. But I think that would be an added factor for this company, to bring in the right CEO that can manage this company a lot better. And I don't mean that I think Michael Dell, certainly I met him once or twice in my life. I mean, I'm not against him, but he usually, very often, the founder of a company shouldn't be running it years later when it matures. And I think he has not done a good job, and I think the board has been asleep on the switch. and the board should have held him accountable years ago. I mean, the stock has had a very, very poor performance in the last 3 or 4 years.